You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. This episode and every episode of Sox in the Basement brought to you by Cork and Kerry at the Park, 33rd and Princeton in the shadow of the ballpark. Ballpark favorites, award-winning burgers, indoor-outdoor seating. It's a beautiful spot to sit pregame, postgame, in-game, and just enjoy some food, some fun, some drink, and enjoy what you can out of a White Sox second half when we're really just waiting for trades. See more at corkandkerry.com. We're going to get into that. I want to talk about who could possibly get moved, what we're realistically expecting back. I want to get into that. I want to take a look at what we're expecting in the second half, what we're really watching, because I'm not really watching for wins necessarily, although I would like for them to continue to build, winning, I don't know, winning attitude, win some series.
Winning culture.
Winning culture. There you go. Winning culture.
That winning feeling.
You know what they all have to do? They have to sit down, they have to watch season 4, or actually all 4 seasons of Welcome to Wrexham. Have you seen this show? I just finished it. Did you watch the last season of it? The new one that's out?
No, I have not watched last season.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I ended with tears in my eyes. If you're a sports fan, I don't care if you like what they call football over in England or soccer over here. If you don't like, who cares? If you're a sports fan, watch that miniseries or the documentary. It's a docuseries. That's what it is. It's called the docuseries. Watch that. It's got 4 seasons to it. The basic premise is that the guy from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Rob McElhenney, and Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool himself, who were not friends until they bought this team. Like the guy who's got the TV show money needs to find movie star money, so he reaches out through Facebook to Ryan Reynolds. And they don't meet in person till they start to go through the purchase of the team. That's incredible, but it's the true thing that they talk about this. Now they're best friends 4 seasons into it, right? Because they own an English football team, and they're in they're not even in the actual English football league. They buy something that's so far down that it's basically like buying a rookie ball club. And then you have to move up levels. So if you compare this to baseball, they bought a team that was at rookie ball level. And their goal is to get it to the major leagues. Because every season, the top couple teams get to move up a league. And the bottom couple teams get relegated, get moved down.
Right.
Which is how baseball should be. Do that Major League Baseball. If they would have thought of this with baseball 100-some years ago, when they came up with this, if they would have thought of it then, we would never have problems with, salary cap being suggested and players associations being angry about money and owners that aren't trying, because everybody would be trying because your business fails if you're not good. Because if you go down, you don't make enough money, and all of a sudden the billionaire is making millionaire money instead. So everybody wants to be up at the top, and it keeps all the owners honest. Relegation in English football is the greatest idea in the history of sport. Seriously.
Even though the White Sox would have been relegated this year.
The White Sox would be in a church league at this point.
I was about to say, the White Sox would have lost your softball team last week.
They'd be in Evergreen Park playing over at Duffy Field with the men's club league this year, playing 16-inch softball. That's how low they'd be right now. If there was relegation, the White Sox would have been relegated well out. They would have been relegated through AAA, AA, single A, and they'd be sitting down at the bottom. They'd be in a church league someplace playing 16-inch softball on the south side of Chicago. But the amazing thing about this series is that, one, it shows you as a fan what happens when teams are truly incentivized to win. Because ownership has to win. Because if they're the worst, they lose a ton of money. So everybody's got to try. And secondly, it's just an amazing series because it watches these guys legitimately say, wait a minute, in America, we don't have relegation. We don't have promotion. But you're telling me I can buy something on the cheap? And if I run it right, I can go all the way up to the Premier League? I can just keep going up and up and up and up and become like a billionaire? And that's what these guys are attempting to do. And I'm not going to give away what happens in this current season. But first of all, I mean, I cried at the end of it. And they got me to cry at a television show. It was like when Kevin Costner goes, "Dad, you want to have a catch?" I had like one of those moments in the last episode.
Yeah, that's a heart tugging moment right there.
I had one of those moments in the last episode of Welcome to Wrexham season 4. I really did. If you don't tear up, you're not a sports fan. You have no heart. Okay, but like I was talking about this today with my daughter, and she's upstairs. She's already on episode 2. She's going to binge all 4 seasons.
Well, I know what your daughter's doing this weekend.
That's what Audrey's doing this weekend. She's binging Welcome to Wrexham. But I mean,
just make sure she has food and water.
But I mean, as I watch it, I just sit there and I say to myself, like, this is what would happen if like owners really tried. Like if these guys sat there and they've lived amongst American sports where fan bases are miserable and there's nothing you can do about it. And they were like, what if we bought something at a low level and then we actually ran it correctly? We'd become richer. We could save this small town that we're buying it in, right? Like Wrexham is essentially the White Sox. They are a fan base that has been done bad by ownership and other owners like throughout their entire history. They've been just ruined by bad ownership, just like the White Sox. Okay. And it's made the whole fan base just miserable. Like they pulling a Wrexham is blowing it and getting knocked out of the playoffs. I mean, they're the White Sox. They're what it's like to be a White Sox fan. Take out 2005. Take the feeling you had before 2005. Okay? And what we're really developing again here as a fan base, Wrexham and Chicago White Sox fans are basically the same thing. Like, I think that's why I love the show so much. Because it's the dream.
You sympathize. Yeah, you sympathize with the Wrexham fans because, like you said, here, we get in these spirals, these franchise death spirals where they can't get ahead, they can't win, they won't spend enough money to compete with the big boys, but they don't develop player talent enough to compete with anybody on the cheap. And, you know, you see it where players are disenfranchised with how things are run. Players who are long gone are still coming up in the news and talking about what a miserable experience it was being here. And, you know, and as fans, we're sitting here going, yeah, but what do? Do we abandon this? Do we turncoat and go to the north side? Do we head way south and go to the Cardinals? Like, what do we do here? And yeah, it would be kind of fun to sit there and say, you know, you and I could sit here and say, well, we want to take on Jerry Reinsdorf, so we're going to pool our money and find, you know, the worst beer league team we can find, and darn it, we're gonna get that up through relegation.
Right, we're gonna
be part of the AL Central in a couple of years.
Right, and he can go away. Like what they are a perfect example of, and I think this is why I enjoy it so much. I find myself rooting. I know the game has already happened. I know I can actually look up what happened that season because it's a documentary. So they're going back and they're showing what happened. But I purposely don't pay any attention to what happens to Wrexham football during their actual season because I want to watch the documentary. And I find myself cheering goals. Like I get into the games when I know they're just recaps because I don't know how it's going to end, right? Like I don't know what's going to happen. But what really stands out, and this is something that you wish you got from your owner in professional baseball. This is what you wish you got. When somebody comes to these guys and they go, look, this would be a big investment. And if it doesn't work out, I mean, you could lose a little bit of money on it. But if it does work out, not only are you going to win, but you're going to get a lot more income and you're going to increase your fan base and you're going to increase all this other stuff. But it's a risk. And every single time they look at him, they go, F it. Let's go for it. And they just throw their money into it. And it's not play money. I mean, Ryan Reynolds doesn't make as much money as Jerry Reinsdorf does. Okay. Reinsdorf's a billionaire. He's just $100 millionaire. And it's like the Rob Megalan, he's got like less than 100. They show his like net worth on the show. He is nowhere near that. Okay. Like he's rich to me, but he's nowhere near a billionaire. And they keep risking everything because they see that it could work. And so you find yourself rooting for them too. Like that's the kind of owner I want. I know I'll never get it because there's no such thing as relegation in professional sports in America. But wouldn't relegation be amazing in baseball? Wouldn't it just be the most? I think I brought this up on the show once before. We've done 800 episodes. Sometimes I say the same thing more than once. But I mean, like wouldn't relegation be the most amazing thing? It it would make the second half of the season so interesting. I mean, you got the basement of Major League Baseball, essentially, with the White Sox and the Pirates kicking this thing off. And imagine if they're both trying to get themselves above each other because one of them's getting relegated.
Yeah, the Rockies are a lost cause, and then somebody's got to not be second place in that derby.
And now these two are going to kick off the season to try to avoid relegation. The series would be huge.
Oh my gosh. Oh my, yeah, the stakes
huge.
of an Adrian Hauser, Paul Skeens matchup would never be higher.
It would be amazing. So I mean, seriously, if I could do one thing, if I had like magical powers, I could just make anything happen, I would snap my fingers and add relegation to Major League Baseball.
If Rob Manfred was lying on the street bleeding out and handed you the orb of commissionerism.
I love that scenario. It's always like if somebody was dying tragically and he signed over everything to me, what would I do?
Right. Yeah.
I'm killing Jerry Reinsdorf in that one, but let's kill Rob Manfred. And somehow he has the ultimate power to just add relegation without anybody approving it. Like we have to have that as well.
I assume it's some sort of mystical object that's just handed from one commissioner to the next.
If every baseball owner was on a bus and the bus was teetering off the side of a cliff and it was going to fall and there was no way to save any of them, and I just happened to come along and they handed me the magical staff of power over their entire league right before they fell off into the cliff, which would be spectacular. Just erase 30 billionaires from the earth, see how much better it gets, right? And then they hand me their magical staff, and I can do it. I would add relegation. Welcome to the South Side.
Yeah. It's a good thing we don't have high cliffs around here.
Oh, okay. We're going to get into some White Sox stuff. Before we do that, the risk is real. More than 80% of home falls occur in the bathroom. After I read this ad, you're never going to want to walk into the bathroom again. Injuries often involve slippery bathtubs, awkward transfers, lack of proper support. Seniors and those recovering from surgery are especially vulnerable. You can add grab bars, shower chairs, transfer benches, raised toilet seats, non-slip mats, and flooring solutions. You can get a walk-in tub or a roll-in shower. Where do you get all of this? Hyatt Home Medical Equipment, located on the southwest side in Chicago, actually technically in Evergreen Park. They're going to work with your insurance. They have 0% with financing. They got all kinds of ways to help you out, and they've got a great website, hhme.com. Go see what they can do for you. Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. Okay.
Sounds like we need to get all 30 owners into a bathroom.
Yeah, we could do that. That would kill them all. And then we get relegation. Yeah. I mean, look, I know I just spent 10 minutes talking about
we'd get 60 owners.
Welcome to Wrexham and relegation in baseball, but it would be a beautiful thing. And if you haven't watched that series, go watch it. Okay. I mean, tears in my eyes. There were tears in my eyes watching the last season of it. Okay. Luis Robert Jr.
Speaking of things to cry over, Luis Robert Jr.
Yeah. Well, first his demise, and now the fact that teams are looking at him, he's going to go, and I want him to go. Like, here's the thing. I remember last year at this time, I didn't want Luis Robert Jr. to go. I was like, you got a couple years of control. This guy's a superstar. Why would you let him go? And then you know what he became? Not a superstar. He's not a superstar. Okay? He's a guy who has an incredible amount of potential that can't put it together unless he's on a team where everybody else around him is playing well. So he's going to go someplace else and he's going to be good. And that's why you've got 8 or 10 teams checking in on him, supposedly, depending on what reports that you're reading. Okay?
Yeah, I think I saw the New York Post was saying 8 teams. Yeah. I've seen an SI article that suggests that the Giants would be a good landing point.
Right.
I mean, it's just, yeah.
There are a lot of teams that are dealing outfielders. So I think the market's going to be slightly flooded. And he hasn't played very well. Now, he had a nice last couple days before the All-Star break. They have to be encouraged by that. And they have to hope that he plays well for a couple of weeks. I mean, somebody needs to sit him down and say, Luis, if you want to get off this team and actually play for contender, you're going to actually have to try. Can you just pretend for a couple of weeks that you care and go out there and play? Because I don't know what the guy's deal is. I want as much as I can get for him, and I want him off the team by the end of the month. Because you're not going to give him $20 million, and he certainly has not performed to deserve $20 million. He hasn't performed well enough to deserve the $15 million he's making. So he's not part of your plans. They probably wish they would have got rid of him a year ago. And trust me, I was one of those people that said, don't get rid of him, because I was like, why would you move on from this guy? But he's done something completely unexpected in the way that he's played over the back half of last year and the first half of this year. So now you're just trying to get something for him. I think they move him no matter what. The question just becomes, what do they get for him? Is it going to be a bag of balls, or will they find something? And it goes back to something that James Fox was talking about, and I know you heard it when he was on the show last episode. James Fox from Future Sox was talking about there's this gap in the talent in the minor leagues. Most of your prospects that you really care about that are in the upper levels are up now. And the next group is down in single A. There might be a pitcher here or there, but in terms of players, in terms of hitters, you've got a while before you get another one. So the trade deadline is really about trying to find somebody that's a little bit higher up, a little bit more developed to kind of fill in that gap of your prospect, of your position playing prospects, Ed.
Yeah, it's got to be AA, AAA, maybe somebody who's even major league ready that just hasn't gotten an opportunity yet. And those would all be nice things, but I think you're looking more at, Chase Mydroth than you are at somebody who is going to be a surefire superstar, right? So to kind of use the crochet trade, Mydroth is the nice player who's having, a nice season. He's been pretty bad going into the All-Star break, but, he has a chance to turn it around. He's got some skills. But Braden Montgomery's the guy that we're all looking at going, well, this was the guy, right? And Kyle Teal's the guy we looked at and went, well, this is the guy. So you're probably looking more at Mydroths than you are at anything else, which is okay because you kind of need those guys. And you don't really have a whole lot to bolster, like you said, in between where your guys are an A-ball that you're looking at and what you have down in Charlotte, what you have down in Birmingham. So getting some of those guys that are mid-level but are higher up, are closer to major league ready, is going to be a useful thing because, frankly, at this point, you're just trying to fill out some of the roster and you're trying to hope that what you do is you catch somebody who becomes a starter for you. And you're not going to get what I think everybody wants to get off of a Luis Robert Jr., which is a young and up-and-coming superstar for an established superstar, which is it's just not how this is going to work. No,
that's not going to happen. I would think that your most valuable trade chip, like I was thinking about this, it may not be Luis Robert Jr., maybe Adrian Hauser.
It's definitely Hauser.
Adrian Hauser is your most valuable trade chip. Robert Jr. might not even be as valuable in bringing something back as Mike Tauchman right now. I mean, Mike Tauchman has got a nice hitting line. He's got a pretty good glove. He's an outfielder, and he's more consistent. Like the person taking Robert Jr. has to subscribe to what I believe, which is he's got to be surrounded by talent. So you want to put him on a team that's got a ton of talent around him and bat him lower in the lineup and take pressure off him and then watch him flourish because and it'll change his attitude. Like that's what you're hoping for that team, but you're not giving up a ton to get that. But that's probably, if you find a team that believes that, that's how you get your best return for Luis Robert Jr. But Mike Tauchman,
right? Corey
Lee could get dealt. I mean, you have
he really could. They just picked up Blake Sable, who's another catcher,
right? And then here's the other thing, and this was an interesting thing that I kind of skipped over a little bit. I didn't even notice it till post production. I was like, man, I kind of missed that when James Fox of Future Sox was on the last show. He said something along the lines of you got to play Caro and you got to play Teal. He's with me on this idea of like, one of them should be the DH when the other one's catching most of the time because they need those at-bats. But he also doesn't subscribe to the fact that they would be a good fit other than as a catcher. So if the team could pick one, right? Like what if the team said, all right, one of them we really truly believe in as a catcher. And the other one we really would like to move at this point. Like could they move one of those guys? I mean, I know this is crazy talk. If somebody came along and said that they're going to give you something really good for them, right?
That's not crazy at all.
Like you could trade one of those guys now who have made it to the majors, shown they're a viable major league player who's only going to improve, right? Didn't fall on their faces. Trade one of them, make Corey Lee a backup catcher where he belongs. That way the other guy gets the lion's share of starts and becomes your catcher for the next, 5 to 10 years. You move the other guy to go find a piece that's ready to go. Or two high-end pieces, and you because you have two high-end catchers, and only one of them can catch every day, and you don't know if you got a spot for him someplace else. So not only would I think is Lee somebody that could get moved because you've said, okay, well we don't have room because of Caro and Teal, but you could also think outside the box if the right offer came along and say we're going to move Caro or Teal now, and because now people can see what they are. They're more valuable now than when they were acquired by the team, and go get something of a high value to put in a different position of need, because you have several need positions that you don't really have down in the minor leagues, and you don't have a guy who's standing there saying, pick me, bring me up here, and I'm going to fill that role for the next 5 years. That's a possibility as well. So when I'm looking at like trade value that the White Sox have, again, Hauser I think is the big name. Robert depends on the lens that they're looking through. Talkman might actually be more valuable to some teams that are looking for outfield help just for this year and don't want to have the price tag that comes with Luis Robert Jr. And Corey Lee is definitely somebody that you would be looking to move, but you could also, again, think outside the box and move one of those other two catchers and make Lee the backup, because you know which one you think is better. And you just take that leap of faith saying, we think this guy's the everyday guy. We think this guy's perfect to trade to get another everyday guy at a different position.
Yeah, there's nothing crazy about that at all, because you and I have talked about Lenyn Sosa and as a guy who's not really fitting what the White Sox want to do, maybe not in their plans, especially in an infield that has Miguel Vargas, Colson Montgomery, and Chase Meidroth. And, the idea of trading Sosa, who's arguably one of your better hitters and is an emerging talent, it would seem to be ridiculous given where this team is. But why not? Why not sit there and say, I would trade Lenyn Sosa. I would have him on my list. If you don't have a spot for him, if you don't really have room for him and you don't know what you're going to do with him, one of the problems I have with Sosa, Teal, or Caro acting as the DH is that none of them are really traditional sluggers. Of those three, Sosa's the only one who's shown any consistent power, right? Teal and Caro really have not put the ball out of the ballpark yet. And as a catcher, that's okay. But as a DH, it becomes an issue. As a first baseman, it becomes an issue. And if you're not willing to move one of those guys to another position or have them share time, okay, the guy that they just acquired, again, Blake Sable, spent some time when he was a Rule 5 pick with the Giants. He spent some time in their outfield as a bench guy because they just wanted versatility out of him. But if you're not willing to do that with one of these two guys, then yeah, at some point you do have to make that decision, whether it's this year or in the offseason. You have to sit there and look at it and go, well, what do we do going forward? Because we're not going to be able to split time evenly with these guys. And they're both going to want to play. They're both going to become unhappy at some point.
And they're both going to be better if they play more. If you don't play them, if you play them every other day and the other one sits on the bench, you stunt their growth. And you take away their value. They need consistency.
Okay, hitters need to be at the plate. That's why it's a rare talent for someone to be a pinch hitting specialist. When you think back in the olden days when pitchers would hit, the reason why those guys were so valuable, even if they had no real position, even if they were not a particularly good tool for any, one of the things that make a baseball player great, but if they could hit, if they could put the bat on the ball consistently, all right, off the bench, didn't matter how cold they were, didn't matter who was on the mound, that in and of itself was a particularized skill, right? So when you're looking at these guys and you're looking at what it is that you want to get back and what it is you want to do on this team and what you want to fill, all right, one of the things that you can sit there and say is, look, we just don't need a guy to sit there and rot, all right, and we don't need one of our top prospects to be turned into a bench bat unless that's what he's earned his way into, okay? If you think that these guys have a future and it looks like they do, then yes, absolutely sit there and say, if there's a team out there that offers you something that is of equal or greater value to Kyle Teal, then trade Kyle Teal, especially if it's something that will be another piece for you to build around in the future, because that's what Teal and Carroll represent, is something to build around. And that's what, when we talk about a Lenyn Sosa, you sit there and you go, yeah, I don't know if he's a guy that they build around or if he's just a guy that some offensive starved team that would stick him at first base out of position or can live with his lack of defense at second base would sit there and say, yeah, we just need the bat because we're going on a playoff run here and we can't afford to keep a guy on the roster who isn't hitting, isn't contributing at the plate at all. And as a young guy, they bring back more because you have control over them. So it's a huge trade chip if you're willing to do it. But I think as fans, we've been conditioned not to do this, which is why the White Sox held on to Tim Anderson way too long, even though the underlying metrics suggested that there was a lot of smoke and mirrors when he was leading, getting batting title kind of buzz, or why Yohan Moncada, when everyone was like, well, he still has potential, the Sox didn't trade him, even though the writing kind of was on the wall. Like, yeah, he's not panning out the way we think he is. Maybe you should strike while the iron's hot if you don't believe in this guy. Or you started off the conversation about Luis Robert Jr. by pointing out that last year at this time, he still had a lot of potential, and there was still a chance that he could come back. And now it seems like it's a lot bigger issue, and something where teams are going to have to sit there and just have dreams of him hitting his ungodly moonshot bombs when he actually connects with one out of their 7th or 8th spot in the batting order, and just playing really good center field if they don't have that.
Yeah, Adrian Hauser, I think, is your biggest piece. You might see a catcher go. It's probably more likely Corey Lee, because I don't think they're going to think the way that we're thinking about the other two guys. Okay, and maybe their plan is that after we get through the trade deadline and we're done featuring players, the deal that we won't be doing this silly one sits on the bench while the other one catches and flip flops every day. We'll actually get one of them into the DH role. So maybe that's going to change, and so that's why they wouldn't have any intention of doing the crazy thing, or that you think is not so crazy, which may not be so crazy, is moving one of them to go get something of equal value that could just play at a different position, which would be amazing. And then I don't know what you're going to get for Luis Robert Jr. I have no idea. I mean, the interesting thing about this second half is who they're going to move, what it's going to look like afterwards, where everybody is playing on August 1st and August 2nd. What did the lineup start to look like? Right? And can they start winning some series more than they're losing series, which you were starting to see a taste of here in the last month or so of this season? That's what I'm looking for. I'm also looking to the Sox nerd right now. That music right there is the Sox nerd, Dave Marin. He puts all those tidbits and trivia nuggets up on the scoreboard at the rate, and he's going to finish this show off as he appears each and every weekend on Sox in the Basement, brought to you by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience a downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore. Check out the Lamont Unlocked podcast as I travel around Lamont and eat all of their food. See it all at lamontdowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Fellas, a few nuggets on Shane Smith and his All-Star outing. The right-hander made the 51st appearance by a White Sox pitcher in an All-Star game in the NL's homer-induced win in the Midsummer Classic on Tuesday. Smith was the first rookie pitcher to represent the Sox in an All-Star game and the first Rule 5 pick to be an All-Star the season after being selected in the Rule 5 draft since 2006. Speaking of Rule 5 picks, I would have been perfectly content if Mike Vassell and his 2.47 ERA and average of 6.4 hits per 9 innings repped the Sox Tuesday. But if he did, we wouldn't have gotten gems like these. Shane Smith hit the first batter he faced in an All-Star game. He became the first to do that since Washington's Don Stenhouse plunked Pittsburgh's Dick Groat to open the 62 game at Wrigley Field. The only other hurler to do this was the Yankees' Spud Chandler, who hit the Browns' Jimmy Brown to start the 1942 game at the Polo Grounds. Smith, Chris Sale in 2014, and Rich Gossage in 1975 are the only Sox pitchers to hit a batter in an All-Star game. Smith's outing of 1/3 of an inning was short, but it wasn't the shortest by a Sox pitcher in an All-Star game. That distinction belongs to Jason Beret, who failed to get an out in losing the 1994 game in Pittsburgh. Smith, Sandy Consuegra in 1954, Matt Thornton in 2010, and Liam Hendricks in 2022 are Sox pitchers to throw 1/3 of an inning in an All-Star game. Smith faced just 2 batters in his All-Star outing. That is tied for the second fewest in Sox star history behind Hendricks' 1 in 2022. As far as pitches thrown, Smith's 10 are the 7th fewest by a Sox twirler in an All-Star game since 1994. The fewest amount of pitches by a Sox rep in an All-Star game in that span was Hendricks' 3 in 2022. To put a capper on this, Smith's outing dropped the Sox ERA to 3.16 in 35 All-Star appearances. On an unrelated note, the Sox will play in their 78th different venue next week when they visit the Rays at Steinbrenner Field. This was on the heels of the Sox debut at Sacramento's Sutter Health Park, making this season the first since 1994 with Cleveland and Baltimore. The Sox have played for the first time in 2 AL stadiums in the same season. Before I get to my zinger, I remind you that gems like these and long-form pieces are on my blog, which you can link to at soxinthebasement.com. My zinger, in honor of the 20th anniversary of the World Champions, I'm going to zing frequently about the team, throwing out some gems you may not know about the 2005 Sox. Once upon a time, pitchers hit and 3 hurlers hit safely for the 05 champs. Cliff Polite, John Garland, and Orlando Hernandez. That's it, fellas. Probably more than you wanted to know about Shane Smith, Rule 5 picks, and Sox venues.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.